Yeah, I know, but what is God?
You can call- look.
energy.
To make things easier, we don't believe in God as a human being. So when we say someone, we're not talking about a human being.
So why do
We're
we
talking
attach the being language to what you believe is God?
Because a being
That's
has
a big problem I have.
a being has to have a will in order to do something, to action something. In this case, the universe, creating the universe. So it has to be an intelligent being with a will.
The problem I've got that is I don't necessarily it has to be like a conscious, intentional thing.
Why not?
Why does it have to be?
Because that.
Because I'm not making the
Can I
claim
tell
that.
you
I'm
why?
not saying it wasn't.
Let me tell you why. Let me tell you
Go
why.
on.
Because if it's not an intentional and conscious cause, if it's a mechanistic, that's the only other alternative.
Sure.
If it's mechanistic,
Okay.
like you said with the AI, eternal causes have eternal effects. So what does that mean? So if there is, for example, if I turn the light switch on, there's no lag between me turning it on and the light coming on. So, because we know that existence wasn't always here, and we know that prior to existence, there was this thing, that means the cause is not a mechanistic cause. You see what I'm saying? Because mechanistic causes, there's no lag. If the cause exists, the effect necessarily exists. So if there's a being, there needs to be an effect. There needs to be a universe. But we know the universe didn't always exist, and we know for the universe to exist, there must have always been a being. So you see, there's a time where, or pre-time you could say, where there was the being and no universe. That means the cause is not mechanistic. That's the problem.
I still want to know, why do you disagree with
So it has to be
a conscious,
intentional. It has to be there's a point
conscious
in time
willing
where It
agent?
was an intention agent that made it to come about, because it wasn't forced. I just explained, like electrical currents on a circuit or anything like that. Like if there was a if the cause occurs, effect necessarily occurs. That's a mechanistic cause. But an intentional cause, like I, for example, have the ability to see, but I could delay that. I could delay sight by closing my eyes, but I could intentionally want to see by opening my eyes. See what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not following this. But no.
Okay, just
Some
stick
lot
the
of words
and stick.
came out
Okay, how about
I've
this?
been trying.
Yeah, keep it simple, bro.
The electrical example. Immediately, everything.
What you're trying to prove now.
I'm just trying to show his stuff, the fact that this agent or this being or this thing has will or it's an agent, it's a volition that's conscious. Yes, actively trying to create. It's not some mechanism that's like dead. You know what I mean? Like a dead
I still
mechanism.
want to know from you guys, why do you think this being or this entity, say for example, cannot be conscious and willing if you know that it is going to bring this existence, including the universe, to be created? Why do you think it's not conscious or willing? So for anyone to create anything, they must have consciousness.
He's saying it could have been the other way.
Yeah, but what's the alternative? It cannot be mechanical, because mechanical, then you must imply there must be some other matter, some other thing before the universe then, which we have no evidence for.
So like mechanistic things require like calibration, require somebody to bring them about, etc. So they're dependent, like the way they're functioning, they're dependent on something that configures their function.
Yeah.
That's one issue. Another issue that I'd say to you is the issue that I was talking about before. Mechanistic causes don't have ability to not manifest their effects.
How do you know the being that created the universe was created by a being before that?
Oh, good. So, if that, let's say that this is the case, then you wouldn't be talking about the being that would be the ultimate creator, because the thing that is the ultimate creator that everything else relies upon
It's like the first
cannot.
point.
Yes, the first exactly.
Yeah,
It cannot
I see.
because remember the problem of infinite regress. Because if you say the thing that created the universe also had something to create, that means we're not talking about God.
No,
We're
I
talking about
appreciate it.
there needs
Surely the
something before.
ultimate
Yeah.
creator doesn't the ultimate creator still have an infinite?
Sorry?
No,
Doesn't
because
there
it's
still have the
uncreated.
infinite-
Let me tell you why.
Because
you're
it is
making a-
uncreated, it's self-sufficient, it's
It's only
independent.
things that have been began to exist
Yes.
need a cause before. And the argument is it never began to exist, it always existed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even if you strip it away from time, because some people like to talk about timing issues like time theory.
Let's not complicate
I'm
what-
not gonna complicate. If you just do this, if you take the sum aggregate, if you just collect all things that are dependent on other things, like the wind, like the universe, everything within the universe, all that, you set it as a sum, all that, because it's dependent on something else, that whole set is dependent on something else. And because everything that is dependent is inside that set, it cannot be dependent on something that is dependent also. Why? Because all dependent things are inside that set. You get what
So
I'm saying?
we need to categorize everything you see, the universe, and you cannot say that everything that is outside the universe Yes, in this case, because we don't know right now. So we are using inference here. And that's how we conclude that there must be an entity which brought about all this into existence, but then we have to give that entity attributes, because you cannot talk about any entity without attributes. And that's why we say it. In order for it to create, it must be a willing agent. To create, the ability to create, the intelligence, it must have a will. You cannot say it doesn't, because then it wouldn't make sense for it to bring into existence this universe.
Okay, so
that's the most
obviously
plausible
this
explanation.
Argument has gone to a point where it's like it really is hard to not agree that there is. For, as the journey of our argument, okay, we're at a point where it's hard to argue that there's no ultimate creator that's always existed.
No, there is. Okay,
It's hard.
It's hard not.
That's
to
the most plausible explanation.
Yeah. At the point we're at now.
Good.
But what I find tricky now then is like what is that being? Like, what is that? Is what? Like, because like I accept that loads of things can't be explained in our world, in our like things are so nuanced and crazy, and sometimes you can't explain things. But some things we can explain quite well, and even if we're wrong, we'll science is evolving. Like
no, that's
that. So. But I've never had anyone say an explanation to me of like what scientifically, or not even scientifically, I don't care about science, but like what even is that being? Like, is it energy? What is it?
Okay, so are you asking what it is made of?
Yeah, sorry. What's it made of?
Okay.
And what does it look like?
Now you see.
And how does it will?
Yeah,
Where does the will come from? Because we know will comes from our brain normally. No?
Not really. You can be willing. So if you say your heart, for example,
okay.
Could be heart, could be a brain.
Willing comes from a human being.
So all of that,
animal,
all of it goes back to your consciousness. All of this, including your will. Okay? If you're conscious, only then you can willingly do something.
Okay.
Okay, if you're unconscious, if you're willing, I don't know, metaphorically, you can't do anything. So it goes back to your consciousness. And then we believe that God, because now I'm using the term God for the first time in case you didn't notice, because we have come to the conclusion that this being is intelligent, has the ability to create at least three things. And the other thing is it's uncreated, because otherwise it would be contingent. So it is a necessary being in this case, and the necessary being at least has these qualities, these minimal qualities at least. Now, when we look at the Quran, we know that this being is able to communicate with us. Okay, so it didn't just create us and then say, yes, go about your daily life as you wish. No, it is able. If God is able to create the universe, is able to communicate with us, and this is where we.
Why isn't it easier to communicate with them?
Why is it? Sorry, why is it?
Why isn't it easier for us to communicate? Why is it a question?
No,
why
because
is it a question for us. Why are we talking about it?
Okay.
Why don't I know who they exist?
Because the reason you haven't maybe looked into it, just like you got the Quran today, maybe, alhamdulillah, inshallah, you'll read it, and then you'll be able to answer those existential questions. That differs. That's what defines us different from the deist. You studied about deism, right?
Yes.
So in deism, the God is just created everything, and then that's it. Okay, everything else is mechanical in a way. So you want to say something?
I was going to say something. Yeah. Sister, we actually believe that you're actually born with that understanding. So we believe, like as Muslims, we actually do believe that you're born believing in God. So we actually think that the reason you're saying that, why isn't it more clear to me, or why don't I already believe, or why not? We don't think that that's a product of God. We think that simply in the Quran it says that it talks about your natural inclination. We believe in this thing called a fitrah. So your fitrah is your natural predisposition to recognize your creator, to recognize there's a higher power. Obviously, we're not saying kids from Christian families are born and they're saying, I'm Muslim. No. There's this inclination inside us. So it's like a longing, like a yearning, like a spiritual fulfillment that we require to connect with our creator. This is something actually that they've done studies.
Extremely subjective.
Yeah, no. So that's what I was just going to tell you. It's actually something that isn't subjective, that they've done studies on at Oxford University. Justin Barrett has a famous study about it. Basically, they've done studies on children that come from atheistic backgrounds, from countries that are more secular and atheistic. And basically, they've seen that these children, from a young age, they have this natural inclination to recognize there's a divine higher power of some sorts. And what's interesting is he also cites the fitrah. as a conception that the Muslims believe that human beings are actually born. What do we really think this is? God who created you, like He created everything else with a purpose, created you with a purpose, and left in you a signature, kind of a way to, like a signature of the Creator, is like a longing or yearning for the one who created you. But what happens is what? I want to land for your point, because your point is a good point. Why? Like, it's a good question. Like, why don't we have this? What happens is we're born, and this is also mentioned in the Quran. When we're born on this natural fitrah, and then what happens is our parents, change our beliefs, and obviously from beyond our parents, our socialization. So when we study in sociology, there's primary socialization, secondary socialization. Primary is your family, your home. Then secondary is when you leave the house, you get educated, and we're in a secular, really pushes away religion. That's really capitalistic, that's materialistic. So it pushes all these things on you, and it preps you to be a 9-to-5 worker. It tells you the things that are worth pursuing in life are things that are mostly hedonistic, and things that serve the capitalist interest, which is basically being a productive member of the economic part of society. So it doesn't give you value in, don't spend time like searching for your purpose, or searching for whether God created you, or fulfilling these spiritual answers. That has no economic benefit for the system, the capitalist system we're living in. So it pushes away these things, and you get socialized. And by the way, not just you, all of us, we all get socialized into this. And what happens is your fitrah becomes veiled. So we believe the fitrah could be unveiled and veiled and clouded, basically. So when you go through all of this, your fitrah gets veiled. And when you start now looking into...
I have a deep yearning of in me, which is not really to do with a belief in a higher being. It's to do with like appreciation of like the amazingness of the world and life, and also I'm not a 9-to-5 person. I want to like be a traveller. It's not really like I'm within this.
So you're already breaking away from your socialization in one way.
I'm within this socialization, but I know what you're talking about with this inbuilt, whatever this study has proven.
It's a natural inclination, a disposition.
I think that study, you can't really like prove it.
It's not one, by the way.
All those children have been within some kind of socialization themselves. Like I used to write in my diary about a God.
No, so I'll explain to you. So generally speaking,
or it could be your inner, natural disposition, which you didn't realize is actually making you think about, you asking these questions about and wondering about the nature around you. Actually, that itself is from the fitrah, because you're asking these existential questions. Where did all this come from?
Just 1 second. I want to your point about two points. You mentioned gratefulness and appreciation, and you mentioned the point about the studies. So these studies are peer reviewed. So I don't want to get into a back and forth about like how valid these is. If they're peer reviewed, they're peer reviewed. Like that's what it is. And it's not one. There's a lot of studies, and in fact, the popular.
Sorry, I just want to go back to what did the study try to prove again?
It's showing that generally human beings are born with a natural inclination, a natural yearning, and a natural belief to recognize a creator. Like basically, what is the conclusion? And this is a lot in the psychology of religion. You can look into the psychology of religion. They have some literature on this stuff. It's basically actually atheism is not the default position. In fact, it's believing in God. Atheism is actually an acquired position, they call it in the literature. So why? Because atheism is a positive denial of something that we generally as human beings believe
if
is
someone
true.
was born just on like a desert island, never met another person ever again.
Yeah, they would believe in a creator.
You think, but okay, a creator or God?
No, because we believe God is the creator. So it's not.
So it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same thing for us. But not just
if you look at all the ancient civilizations,
I personally don't think one would believe it.
Let me tell you how. Actually, there's a whole range of arguments in philosophy, ontological arguments, a priori arguments. There's also teleological arguments. All would work on an island. So ontological argument, you just from a priori principles prior to experience. Just through contemplation of concepts and things, you get to a rational conclusion that God exists. Teleological.
A priori reasoning.
A priori is pre-experienced reasoning.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're on an island, you could just through contemplation on just reason, like you try to reason your way to God through contemplation. This is something that philosophers do. There's actually discussions about people on islands. Can people on islands get to God?
Are you breathing?
Yeah, of course. And
because look, if you look at brother, just one second. If you look at all the ancient civilizations, you will say they worship something or the other. Whether it's stones, whether it's something which is being which they don't give a form to, they always gravitate to believe or worship something. Okay? But many times, like you said, the fitra, your natural disposition is clouded, and then you might gravitate towards something incorrect, wrong. And it happens through nurture, not through nature, but through nurture, through your family, through your environment, and so on. But then let's go back to what we were talking about, trying to eliminate everything except for this necessary being. Do you believe that there is a necessary being which brought about the universe into existence now?
Just really quick, important point, because you mentioned appreciation. Because we're trying to show you actually what we're trying to ask you to ponder on and accept is actually something you're actually yearning towards closer and closer. Because what did you say? You said, I have this appreciation. I really want to. No, I'll tell you. So, but in the Islamic conception, what we see is actually denying the Creator is the ultimate form of ingratitude. So what you're doing is the opposite. Actually, you're saying, I want to appreciate. You're looking to appreciate. So what you're doing is actually in line of what we're saying to you. Because what we're telling you is accept Islam, become a Muslim, which is what accept your Creator and submit to Him. This is the ultimate form. Sorry? Oh, let me.
Language is also really weird.
I'll tell you why we say submitting. When we submit, we're saying you gave us everything. That's why it's the ultimate form of gratitude. Because we're saying, look, nothing that we have came about from ourselves. You didn't work for your eyes. You got it for free. You didn't get a receipt for your eyes. You didn't have to pay for it. When you go to the doctor, doctors do stuff for you. You have to pay for it. You pay through it, taxes. I get the NHS here; it's free and stuff. But generally, you're still paying. You're still paying in some sort. You're taking part in society. You're paying in some sort. The point is, you have everything. Your parents, all the blessings you have in your life, this universe that you exist within. Everything that you have is from this Creator. So you submit.
What do you mean by
will.
submission? Is basically the will of your will is kind of in sync here, because He wants you to know Him and to appreciate His creation, and that's how you appreciate. So you might not be doing it actively, knowingly, but indirectly you are still submitting to His will, because He told you to seek Him and to search for Him by appreciating His creation. Allah says to look beyond the horizon and within yourself so that you know. Yes? Know what? Know that He exists.
I still don't understand
Yeah.
why. What's the thing called the free fitra? Sorry.
Is that?
The fitra.
Fitra.
Yes, fitra.
Fitra.
The fitra.
Yes.
The fitra.
No,
The fitra.
The natural disposition, basically.
I still don't understand how that is enough to explain why. It's
Oh, no, we're not
such
saying
a
that's
big
enough.
question.
I just told you that's an
My
interesting.
question was, okay, so why don't we all, as humans,
Yes.
all just agree that?
I gave you the. You know why? We have these things, God gives us the fitrah, but then fitrah could be clouded or it could be unveiled by what your socialization and what things you
So you
consume
think that the
and what
reason
things
why
you do.
not everyone agrees with or believes in God is because of
Their fitrah has become veiled, yes, because of things they've consumed. For example, somebody who consumed a lot of even experiences. Somebody who went through horrible experiences with religious people clouded their fitrah, and then they started doing, for example, very irreligious acts that also clouds your fitrah. Then they consumed a lot of atheistic literature, also clouds your fitrah. So basically, it's a part and parcel with living in a multicultural society where you'll meet people from all walks of life. You also will actions. Some of them are good actions that will uncloud your fitrah. Some actions are actually actions that will cloud your fitrah. For example, somebody will tell you, I don't know why I can't connect or seek with God, but then they do ungodly actions. We believe that ungodly actions, of course, they cloud your fitrah, and they cloud in the same way. You know the concept of numbing your conscience. I don't know. For example, somebody who's trying to seek God but is killing people. You see what I'm saying? So they will have.
What about a more realistic? What about a more realistic example?
Somebody who's lying all the time. Somebody who's cheating people. Wealth, somebody who's cheating on their wives, any actions that are immoral in the sight of God, and you're doing them, but you're saying you try to seek God. This will numb your conscience. It will numb your fitrah.
I think we probably have done an over fitrah thing here.
She had a
So
about
no,
why
good
people
point.
don't
But
believe.
so basically, earlier when I said God is able to communicate with you, that is something that you need to ponder on, because if God can create this universe, then surely He can communicate with us. And the communication, Allah says in the Quran that God sent messengers and prophets to all the nations of the world. So it's not like He has left us unguided. So the guidance for us is that Quran. And that is what we mean. If you read the Quran, and you ask questions based on that, you'll come to the understanding that this life of ours has a purpose. You know, like everything we have, even your clothes, even your necklace, it has a purpose. Why do we as human beings, who are more complex than anything that you see around, not have a purpose? See what I mean? And this is what we need to align ourselves with. What is the reason we are here for? And what will happen to us? You know, one day we're all going to die. Whether you believe in God or you don't. Yes? Whether you're a strong believer or you're completely the opposite, you know. The question is this. If we die, and we know we're going to die, not if, certainly when we die, yes, the question.
You think we could still live because we don't know.
Say again?
You think we could maybe not die because we don't.
No, but even in future.
we're all
Yeah, I know, but
Believe before, you don't know the future.
yeah, I know. Even scientists, trust me, even if they go future, at best they're thinking about extending your life, not making you eternal.
Right.
Because I don't think anybody wants to live eternally.
Not quite that.
You know what I mean? Can you imagine that? Okay, so
We're gonna die.
imagine you die, yes, and then there really is God, and there really is an afterlife, and you have to have accountability for everything that you did in this world. Yes. Now you tell me, who has taken the big risk? The ones who are prepared for the afterlife, or the one that maybe there's a God, maybe there's an afterlife, we don't know, and we'll live our life the way we want? Tell me who's taken the bigger risk. You see what I mean?
Well, I'm happy to take the risk.
No, I'll tell you why you're not.
You
This is
wouldn't.
something People say. I'll tell you why.
You
you're
haven't thought it through.
Okay, last
You haven't
why
thought
you're
it
not-
through, that's
Let
why.
me tell you why you're not happy to take the risk. Because what we're asking you to do is an investment, yeah? We're asking you to take a reasonable amount of your time in a finite life to actually investigate what could possibly happen
I
to
will
you
keep
in an
investigating.
infinite afterlife. See the point? So you really, as somebody who's grown up in Western society and stuff, we really care about being happy,
But I
right?
can't wait to
Right?
come back to life and be like, fuck.
No,
it's right.
seriously. If you
No, but you know, for you taking the risk, it's basically like you saying that I got a test in a week's time, but then I'm not going to prepare for it. I'll take my chances.
But I don't know
That's
if
exactly what you're
And
doing.
and not just that, you really care about having a happy life, right? In this life. Do you care about having a happy life? Okay, so if you care about having a happy life in a finite life, imagine how much real care you have if there's an infinite afterlife.
That's a good argument. I'll think about it.
So just keep that in mind.
Keep it in
We're not
mind.
asking you to do something unreasonable. We're telling you, look, if you really care about happiness in this life, you're going to care a lot more about happiness in an afterlife. And why you, we're also not, it's not arbitrary that we're telling you look into the Quran. Why? Because like my brother said, what's called throughout history is demonstrable. We have the stories of many people in the past who came and claimed that they've had a revelation from this creator. Yeah? Now, you could now try going and assessing every single civilization, but you don't need to do that. All you need to do is assess just rationally. The first person you assess is the person that came for you, who claimed to come for you. Jesus said, I've only come for the lost sheep of Israel. Judaism is an ethno-religion. You're not Israelites. The only prophet that you could look at historically that said, I've come as a mercy to mankind until the day of judgment is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and he says that the final revelation is the Quran. So rationally, this is the first thing you'd investigate. So we're not saying it's arbitrary, just because we're Muslim, investigate the Quran. It's like, no, it's like, if we were in the time of Jesus, we'd be followers of Jesus. We wouldn't be Christians, though, because Christianity is something that came well after. Jesus wasn't walking around saying he was a Christian. So, same with Moses. The term Judaism came after Moses.
I think one way to shortlist, because obviously we don't have the lifetime to go and investigate every religion. So what I normally say is that shortlist the religions which claim to be monotheistic. You know, because if you have more than one God, you'll have problems, you'll have chaos, isn't it? Like if one God
You could go
says,
into more there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah.
lovely. Thank you
anyway,
very much.
thanks for your time. Look into the